Rain hissed against the silver canopy of the forest as Zeke's boots crunched over the moss-covered roots of a tree older than Earth itself. Somewhere in this alien jungle, the creature was waiting. Everyone said it couldn't be done, not without plasma rifles, trackers, drones, and an entire fire team. But Zeke wasn't everyone. He had no weapons, no gear, just a pair of worn gloves, a wicked grin, and a reputation that made even battle-hardened mercs mutter when they thought he was out of earshot. He paused. Something had moved. Not a rustle, not a snap. Just a shift in the energy around him, the kind that made the hairs on your neck stand like antennae. Zeke dropped low, one hand brushing against the glowing red fronds that pulsed softly beneath him. His breath slowed. His eyes narrowed. There. 20 meters ahead, half blended into the bark of a massive knucklewood tree, crouched the legend, the Vorquin. 7 feet tall at the shoulder, plated in overlapping biometal armor, 6 limbs tipped with claws that could slice through alloy, and eyes like twin coals burning with intelligence. It hadn't noticed him yet. Which was rare. Most who got this close didn't get much further. Zeke smiled. He didn't attack. That was suicide. He waited. The Vorquin moved, a slow, deliberate shift as it tested the air. Its nostrils flared. Zeke knew it had caught his scent. That was the plan. This wasn't a sneak up and snap its neck kind of hunt. This was about proving something bigger. That humans, stripped of their tech and tricks, could still outmatch the galaxy's most dangerous predator. The beast charged. A blur of motion. Bark splintered. Dirt exploded. But Zeke was already gone, rolling under the sweeping claws, grabbing a low-hanging vine, swinging up, flipping over the Vorquin's back as it skidded to a stop, confused by his agility. Too slow, ugly, he muttered, not loud enough to taunt but just enough for himself. He landed softly, knees bent, heart hammering. The Vorquin turned, now fully focused. It roared. Trees shook. Birds screamed. And Zeke felt his pulse thrum with the electric joy of the moment. What followed was not a fight. It was a dance. Zeke dodged, dipped, slid between roots and vines, using the environment like an extension of his body. He led the creature through narrow canyons of bark, past patches of sticky web vines he knew well. Once, he vaulted over its charging form and slapped its armored back, just to test its reflexes. But the Vorquin learned fast. On the third loop through the clearing, it fainted. Zeke went left. The creature anticipated. A claw caught his jacket, shredding the sleeve and leaving a shallow slice on his forearm. Blood sprayed. Zeke hissed through his teeth, but grinned anyway. "Okay," he whispered. "You wanna play?" Then he changed the rhythm. Instead of running, he met the beast head-on. It reared back, startled. No prey had ever charged it before. Zeke launched himself forward, ducking a claw, twisting around its middle limbs, grabbing hold of a dorsal plate and yanking with everything he had. The Vorquin bucked. He held on. Muscles screamed. His fingers locked. The creature spun, slamming against a trunk. Zeke's back exploded in pain, but he didn't let go. "Not yet," he growled. He climbed. Up its back, between armored ridges, past the thrashing limbs and snapping jaws. He found the spot, a tiny gap just beneath the skull plate where instinct hadn't bothered to armor it fully. He jabbed his fingers in, not to kill, but to lock in. To hold. The beast roared again, more from confusion than pain. It reared. It twisted. But it couldn't shake him. Zeke leaned close to its ear. "Gotcha." For a moment, the jungle was silent. The Vorquin went still. Then, in a move that no xenobiologist would ever believe, it bowed. Not fully. Just enough. Like it recognized something. Respect. Dominance. Maybe both. Zeke slid off, panting, bleeding, soaked in sweat and blood and mud. The beast stood still. Then turned. And walked beside him. Zeke laughed. Loud. Wild. The sound echoed through the jungle. Back at camp, they thought he was dead. No comms. No drone footage. Just the tracker that blinked once every hour. But as the sun broke over the horizon, a silhouette emerged. Zeke. Limping. Smiling. And behind him, The Vorquin. Panic. Guns raised. He waved them down. Relax. He's with me. The commander, a hardened woman with scars across her cheek, blinked. You caught it. With your hands. Zeke shrugged. He caught me too. And the galaxy, which thought it had seen everything humans could do, had just learned it hadn't seen anything yet. The footage, of course, went viral. Billions watched as the moment played on every screen. Memes exploded. Merch sold out. And in the darker corners of space, other predators turned their gaze toward Earth. But the jungle remembered. It remembered the man who faced the apex and didn't flinch. And it whispered his name in the wind. Zeke. The man who hunted the unhuntable. Bare-handed. They didn't lock the Vorquin up. That was the first surprise. Zeke had expected a cage, scanners, collars, maybe even sedation. But when they brought the beast back to Forward Base Thorn, the commander's only instruction was, let it walk. If it wanted to rip your head off, it would have already. So it walked. Through steel corridors, under armed eyes, surrounded by nervous silence. Soldiers cleared out. Scientists pressed against the observation windows. The alien beast moved with an eerie calm, each step a whisper of power, each glance a silent warning. Zeke, bandaged and bruised, limped beside it like they were partners. Like they'd known each other forever. The Vorquin had no name. That bothered him. He tried a few. Titan? No reaction. Ghost? Still nothing. Ripper? A low growl. He stopped beside it, arms folded, squinting up. You don't like any of those. So what should I call you, her? The beast just stared. Then, unexpectedly, it turned its massive head toward a rusted nameplate on the hangar wall. Zeke followed its gaze. The word, Kirene. Zeke chuckled. Kirene it is. That night, they slept in the same bay. Not because Zeke wanted to, but because the Vorquin wouldn't sleep anywhere else. Every attempt to separate them ended with shattered gates or ripped doors. Eventually, the commander stopped arguing. Fine, she muttered, tossing him a cot. Hope you don't snore. What followed wasn't peace. The other species on the planet started reacting. The Vorquin was the top predator. Its sudden absence from the ecosystem disrupted everything. Swarms of razorflies expanded north. Spinetails began migrating into human territory. Something had shifted. Worse, the Crimson Syndicate noticed. Pirates. Mercs. Bio-traffickers. The kind of people who saw a living Vorquin not as a miracle, but as a payday. 3 nights later, the alarms blared. Zeke had just drifted off when the base shook. He was on his feet in seconds. Kirene was already up, low growl vibrating the walls. Outside the bay doors, shouts and gunfire erupted. Perimeter breach. South wall. They're coming for the beast. Zeke swore, grabbing the only weapon within reach, a blunt stun baton. He barely had time to open the doors before chaos poured in. Masked figures, sleek armor, pulse rifles. The Syndicate had come prepared. But they hadn't come prepared for *them star. Kirene moved like liquid death. It slammed one intruder into the ceiling, tail sweeping another clean off his feet. Zeke ducked a blast, drove the baton into a merc's chest, and followed with a knee to the jaw. They moved in sync. No commands. No plans. Just instinct. Together. The base turned into a war zone. Syndicate dropships pounded the main gates. Automated turrets failed. Fire rained from the sky. Zeke found himself back-to-back with Kirene in the central courtyard, panting, bleeding, laughing. This is what I signed up for, he wheezed. Kirene roared in agreement. But they were losing. There were too many. The Syndicate had numbers, tech, air support. It wasn't just a raid, it was a full-on extraction mission. And then the unthinkable happened. A stun lance hit Kirene dead center. The beast collapsed. Zeke turned in time to see the shooter, a tall, red-suited figure with glowing eyes. The leader. You have no idea what you've stolen, the figure said, voice filtered through a mask. This isn't just a creature. It's a weapon. A relic. A key. Zeke charged. He didn't care about the odds. Didn't care about the pain. He was halfway there when the figure lifted one hand and Zeke froze mid-stride. Literally. His limbs locked. His breath stopped. Some kind of kinetic stasis field. You should have left it in the wild, the leader said. The syndicate moved in. Zeke could do nothing but watch as they lifted Kireen onto a grave sled. The moment they broke line of sight, the field dropped. Zeke collapsed, gasping, furious. Too late. Kireen was gone. And Zeke had never felt so human. But something inside him snapped back into place. A quiet, dangerous resolve. This wasn't over. They didn't just take a beast. They took his star. And Zeke wasn't about to let the galaxy think it could steal from him and walk away. He stood. Bruised. Broken. But burning with fire. Get me a ship, he growled. I'm going hunting. The commander looked up, blooded, eyes fierce. Alone? Zeke smiled through the blood. Not for long. Far above, in the sky, the syndicate ship blinked into the void. Zeke's eyes followed. And the hunt began anew. Zeke didn't wait for clearance. Within hours, he'd commandeered a stealth-class interceptor, loaded only with a survival pack, tracking gear, and one battered med kit. The engine core throbbed low and mean beneath him as the ship punched through atmosphere and vanished into the black. He had one lead, a plasma burn signature unique to the Crimson Syndicate's extraction drives. Barely traceable. But he knew someone who could trace it. Her name was Myla. A tech which on the orbital fringe. Ex-syndicate. Ex-human, depending who you asked. She owed Zeke a favor, and he'd come to collect. He found her in a floating scrapyard tethered to an ice moon, a mess of wires and machine limbs clinging to her like jewelry. Her eyes flickered blue as he stepped into her den. You look like a corpse that got in a fight with a blender, she said. You should see the other guy. She snorted. Still hunting the impossible? They took my partner. That shut her up. 10 hours and a mountain of encrypted scans later, she had something. A blip. A signal anomaly that flickered near a dead star in the Vega expanse. You follow this, you don't come back, she warned. Zeke grinned. Wasn't planning to. He burned toward the coordinates at speeds just shy of madness. As he approached, the void rippled. Something was there, but not on any map. A cloaked structure, larger than a battleship, hanging like a parasite on the dead star's gravitational fringe. Syndicate tech. They'd built a lab. He drifted in cold and quiet, masking his heat signature, floating close enough to see the glow of energy shields. He slipped through a maintenance shaft, breathing shallow, every movement calculated. Inside was hell. The lab smelled of chemicals and fear. Rows of cages lined the walls, creatures from every corner of the galaxy. Modified. Mutilated. Engineered. Kireen wasn't just a specimen. He was the blueprint. Zeke found the main terminal. Data scrolled past faster than he could follow: experiments, schematics, test results. One file stood out. *** Project Apex ***. He opened it. Video logs. Footage of Kireen strapped down, electric pulses lancing through him. The beast roared, fought, endured. They were trying to clone him. Break him. Turn him into a weapon. Zeke's fists clenched. He moved faster now. Down corridors, past labs. He followed the sound: dull thuds, heavy breathing, a growl like a planet grinding against itself. Kireen. They had him in a stasis pit. Massive chains latched to bioconductive spikes driven into the floor. He looked thinner, angrier, but those eyes still burned. Zeke dropped into the pit. Miss me? Kireen raised his head. No growl. No roar. Just a slow, deep rumble that shook the metal walls. Zeke sprinted to the control panel, fingers flying. Alarms screamed. Red lights flooded the chamber. Above, footsteps thundered. The syndicate was coming. One chain released. Then another. Kireen moved. Zeke barely ducked in time as the beast erupted upward, snapping the last chain with a roar that shattered glass. He turned as guards dropped into the pit. Pulse fire lit the air. Zeke didn't have a gun. He didn't need one. He had Kireen. The beast tore into the guards with surgical fury. Zeke moved beside him, using debris as cover, tossing stolen stunners when he could. The two of them carved a path through steel and fire. They fought up through the lab, taking out generators, opening every cage they passed. Chaos spread like wildfire. Screeches, snarls, wings beating. The syndicate lost control within minutes. Near the top, the red-suited leader returned. This time, Zeke was ready. The field hit, but he dropped a spike grenade first. The EMP cracked through the chamber, frying the stasis wave. Zeke launched forward, catching the leader with a tackle that drove them both through a glass wall. They landed hard. The mask cracked. A human face stared back. Young. Cold. Why? Zeke spat, pinning him. Why go this far? Because your kind makes gods out of monsters. We make monsters into gods. Zeke slammed his head into the floor. Kireen appeared behind him, panting, wounded, but standing tall. Let's finish this. They tore through the final gates. Zeke found the command bridge, rewired the nav systems, set the reactor to overload. You really going to blow it all? Kireen seemed to ask, just by the way he stared. Zeke nodded. We leave nothing behind. Escape pods lined the wall. Zeke opened one, then paused. Kireen looked at him. And stepped inside. The lab vanished behind them in a wash of light and fury. In the pod, Zeke laughed. Next time, we don't split up. Kireen huffed. They drifted toward the nearest beacon, alive, together, and more dangerous than ever. The stars blurred past as Zeke leaned back in the recovery pod, a ragged strip of synth bandage wrapped around his ribs and 1,000 microfractures slowly knitting themselves beneath his skin. Across from him, Kireen lay still, resting, not unconscious. The beast's breaths were slow, steady, and deeper than anything Zeke had ever heard from a living thing. Like thunder sleeping. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The pod had drifted for 16 hours before a Ranger frigate picked them up. The crew, to their credit, didn't panic. Word had spread. Zeke's name had already reached beyond official channels, whispered in hushed tones between mercs, pirates, and soldiers. The man who caught a Vorquin with his bare hands. The man who broke into a syndicate fortress and came out with his partner. They were brought back to a debriefing station orbiting Orion 7. Medical crews tried to separate them. They failed. Kireen had made his choice. Zeke stood before the Interstellar Council 3 days later. Clean-shaven, uniformed, stitched and tired, but unshaken. You went rogue, one delegate snapped. You endangered lives, stole military equipment, disrupted ecosystems. I saved a life, Zeke interrupted calmly. One that saved mine first. The room was silent. Another delegate leaned forward. You do understand, Sergeant, that the Vorquin is still classified as a Class Omega threat. It must be studied, monitored, controlled. Zeke met the woman's eyes. You had 1,000 years to study creatures like Kireen. You never earned their respect. I did. And what now? You want us to just let you keep him? I don't keep him, Zeke said simply. We walk together. That's the deal. They argued for hours. In the end, it wasn't policy that swayed them. It was fear. Because the message had already reached the stars, Earth breeds something different. Something wild. Something that doesn't break under pressure, doesn't flinch at monsters, doesn't run from the impossible. Eventually, the council ruled in Zeke's favor with conditions, oversight, limitations. He didn't care. Let them think they had a leash on the Vorquin. They didn't. Zeke walked out of that station with Kireen beside him, a job offer in his hand, and the kind of freedom no one could ever really quantify. They weren't soldiers anymore. They weren't prey. They weren't trophies. They were legends. The offers came fast. Private hunts. Royal escorts. High-threat rescues. They turned most of it down. Fame wasn't the goal. Peace was. But now and then, when a situation really needed the impossible, when a planet faced extinction or a colony begged for help, they showed up. And every time, someone asked the same question. Is it true you caught him with your bare hands? Zeke would just smirk. He caught me too. And Kireen would growl softly in agreement. Years passed. Zeke grew older. Slower. But never weaker. The fire never left him. One day, beneath the twin suns of a forgotten world, they stood side by side watching a new sunrise. No guns. No blood. Just wind and light and silence. Zeke turned to Kireen. "We changed things, didn't we?" The beast let out a low, almost thoughtful hum. Zeke nodded. "Yeah. Not just them. Us too." Because somewhere between the hunt and the rescue, between the scars and the survival, something more had happened. They'd become proof. That understanding could conquer fear. That loyalty could be forged in battle. And that sometimes, the wildest, most untamable things in the galaxy, just needed someone brave enough to reach out without a weapon. Moral courage doesn't come from power or technology. It comes from the willingness to face the unknown with open hands. Even the fiercest hearts can recognize trust, and the greatest bonds are forged not through domination, but through respect. Zeke didn't tame the Vorquin. He walked beside him. And the galaxy would never forget that.